So everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us on YouTube or on one of the podcasting sites, please subscribe, like, share. If you're listening to us on the radio, we greatly appreciate that also. Special guest today, she's become national renowned as far as that going. A lot of people around the country are trying to follow her model. I know in different states they are. This is Lisa Guillette. She was the 2020 Woman United Award winner. She also is the executive director, which we'll be speaking about with Foster Forward. It's out of East Providence, Rhode Island. A shout out to the people from Rhode Island that are listening. And the website is www.fosterforward.net. Again, www.fosterforward.net. Lisa, first of all, it's a pleasure to finally get you on. And I'm really looking forward to you telling the viewers what Foster Forward is and how you help a lot of people in the state of Rhode Island.
Well, first of all, Rob, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk a little bit about Foster Forward. Also, I'm a fellow Friar fan, so also a Providence College graduate. So this is a really cool opportunity.
Well, I was a season ticket holder throughout my time at LaSalle Academy. So then I went down to Florida. So not so much now, obviously, because I can't make it up. But we obviously still follow the Friars, and hopefully a very good season up and coming with a new head coach and women's
Yeah.
and men's side. We'll say that,
Yes.
and hopefully many more wins to come on both sides of the basketball. Let's kick this around. Speaking about Foster Forward, tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit about Foster Forward and how it got started.
Sure. So I'm really fortunate to have been with the organization. July will be 20 years for me. And when I started back in 2003, I was taking over what was known as the Rhode Island Foster Parents Association. And it was a very small grassroots organization that was founded around a kitchen table by a group of foster parents who saw the needs of children and youth in foster care in Rhode Island and really wanted to band together to advocate for opportunities for those children and youth and really provide mutual support to one another. And in the 2 decades that I've been here, we've been able to really grow the organization. We rebranded in 2012 and changed our name to Foster Forward, but we've never deviated from that kind of support and advocacy, both for foster families and for children and youth in foster care. And as the years have gone on, we've really become have a kind of a boutique niche in supporting young people who are transitioning from foster care to adulthood. For a very long time in much of the country, young people aged out of foster care when they turned 18. Thankfully, we've had a lot of great national policy advancements, and more than half of the states in the country now allow young people to stay in foster care until they're 21, recognizing that none of us were ready to be fully independent at 18 and leave our own families. I mean, I got the cushion of a Providence College dorm and 4 years of opportunities where meals were provided and I had a place to lay my head and that safe stability. And young people in foster care aren't any different. They really need that support. So that got us into a lot of different new areas: workforce development, housing support, financial capability. And so we offer a lot of training resources, and most recently have actually gotten into housing development. We've bought multifamily properties for young people leaving foster care so that we could rent directly to them. And now we're working with community development corporations to advance housing solutions at scale in Rhode Island.
So what you're doing is really noble work. But personally, what, I guess I'll frame it this way. For what reason did you want to get into this noble work? Is this something that you always wanted to go into? Is this something that you studied in college about trying to help kids in general? What made you want to go into the foster care system and help these kids?
Yeah, great question. Providence College offered a lot of great opportunities for me to study social work. I was a social work major
Okay.
undergrad, and the program there is really fantastic. They have you do an internship in the spring of your junior year. And at that time, I interned with what was then known as the Rhode Island Rape Crisis Center. It's now known as Day One. I had frontline opportunities to man the hotline, to work with staff people and go out and meet with victims of sexual assault, whether it was at a police station when they were giving statements or going to the hospital to receive medical care, or even folks involved in the court process in terms of facing accusers in court and offering testimony. So those really early frontline experiences helped me realize that I was more interested in macro level practice. And in my senior year, I got to intern with the vice president of public policy at the local United Way and go
Mhm.
to a lot of systems meetings in the community, really see the intersection of politics and policy and how to do advocacy, looking at building nonprofits and program development, funding. And so when I graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work, I had an opportunity to stay at the college. I worked for a technical assistance project that worked in special education. So I was on site in Harkins Hall for about 7 years. And then the project moved over to Rhode Island College. But I had the opportunity to pursue graduate studies during that time as well, in the MBA program. And really, all of those experiences kind of shaped and prepared me for the opportunity to lead this organization. And it just was something, if you had asked me when I was in college, what do you want to be someday? I would have said, I want to be an executive director of a nonprofit. And I'm living the dream. Here I am.
Lisa Guillette here on Fire Breathing Rob. It's fosterforward.net. Definitely check out the site. And she is obviously executive director at Foster Forward. Let's kick this around. A lot of people don't really know much about the foster system, whether it's in Rhode Island, Florida, or the rest of the country. Yeah, all they know is that there are kids that, for some reason or other, don't have any other place to go, and they are either in a group home or they do have a foster family. Besides those kind of generalizations, can you educate the audience a little bit better on what these foster kids are going through, what they deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So nationally, there are about 400,000 young people birth to age 21 who are in foster care systems in states around the country. And when a young person comes into foster care, something bad has happened. Their family life has been disrupted. They've experienced some form of abuse or neglect. And the state's made a legal determination that it's not safe for them to stay with their parents. The state has to be able to prove that, assert that in court, and, demonstrate there's a burden on the state to say that, young people need to be taken from their parents for that reason. And then immediately there's a plan to help reunify. And only in very extreme instances would you see moving directly to a termination of parental rights. So child welfare systems were never designed to take kids away from their parents, never to return. They were really designed to be a short-term emergency intervention that would help the parents, put some supports around them, and really help them successfully reunify with their children, address whatever the issues were, whether it was mental health or substance use, whatever was going on in the family that caused either that abuse or neglect. So people need to know that kids in foster care are there through no fault of their own, that whatever happened before was probably very traumatic. And that trauma that they experience will be lasting. And it's something we need to be aware of and that we need to be responsive to with whatever supports we provide. What people also need to know about foster care is that sometimes it's right under your nose and you don't even know it, because a foster care placement actually, in truth, shouldn't be a group home. I mean, really, group homes, congregate care settings, unless they're treatment oriented, when you see young people placed in group homes, it's usually because the system had an inadequate supply of foster families. And what we've learned over time, the best practice is that whenever possible, if there is a fit and willing relative who can step up to care for that child that's coming into care, whether it's a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, we should be utilizing them and placing children with them and supporting the family towards strengthening and towards reunification. And then if that's not possible, and finding non-relative caregivers, finding folks who want to step up and be foster parents, training them and supporting them to care for children, and that's what happens. And really, the state, the federal government says we should be figuring out what's going on and getting to permanency within about 12 months. So foster care should be temporary. It shouldn't be a permanent condition. And, we have three kind of permanency goals. So either we're going to reunification, we're going to adoption, or the third one, which we don't like to see, is that young people are aging out of foster care. So they're actually reaching adulthood and emancipating from the foster care system. And that's the area where I spend a lot of focus, because if kids age out without the right supports, statistically, they're likely to experience more harm and trauma in their lives.
Is that hurting a lot of these kids that, maybe would be getting adopted or maybe even be put into foster care for that? Because the economy's so bad, it's tough as anything. And like you said, these people that are raising the kids, they might do it because they love it, but also they have to think about their well-being and how much money they have for themselves, not to mention, raising a child on their own or with their family.
It's an interesting point, and it's a great question, because in Rhode Island, we've actually seen a decline in the number of non-relative foster parents in the last year or
Mm.
so. It was very difficult for families through the pandemic. Imagine overall removals for kids into the foster care system were down across the country during the pandemic. And one of the things that we pointed to was people didn't have eyes on kids the same way. When we were doing remote learning, right? Children were at home and they were in front of a computer screen. Teachers and school nurses were not seeing kids the same way. And so the number of reports of child abuse and neglect went down dramatically, right?
Right.
And then for folks who were foster parents during the pandemic, when placement was needed, think about it. You were being asked to shelter in place in your home. You were being asked to keep your little circle small, to not introduce new people into your home or to go out into places. And we didn't know really the impact of COVID in the beginning. And we were asking foster parents to keep taking children into their home, like that may or may not have been positive with COVID. We had kids in group homes, and we know, what happened in nursing facilities. There was a lot of risk in that, right? So I think we lost some foster parents during COVID, and now coming out of it, we definitely need more folks to step up. I think the impact of inflation and, the current economic conditions are really seen more broadly in terms of how it's impacting all families, and how conditions of stress might lead families to the front door of child welfare systems that, with the right supports, would otherwise not need them. So what I mean by that is, I don't know about how it is down in Florida, but right now in Rhode Island, we have a housing crisis. We do not have enough affordable rental units for people at the price points that they're at. So I think right now in Rhode Island, in order to afford a two-bedroom apartment, you need to make over $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of folks that are not making $50,000 a year, and they're getting priced out of apartments. And when that's happening to families, and families are being displaced and they're living out of their cars, or they're living in motels, or they're doubled up with other family members, they're far more likely to come to the attention and receive intervention from child welfare systems. So economically, we have to pay attention to these economic conditions, and I think we've got to be responsive to them writ large, to say, how are we protecting and supporting and promoting families and individuals to thrive in our communities?
Well, Lisa, you know this just as well as I do. During the pandemic, there was huge cases of child abuse. It might not have been reported as much because kids weren't in school. It was definitely there, from what I've read and heard. I want to check into this, and we're going to go into some audience questions. We told people we're going to have you on, speaking about the foster system. Just talk about this. You've had a lot of very successful programs that you've implemented with Foster Forward. Can you talk about some of those programs as far as helping these kids with housing, with work placement, everything else in the kitchen sink you do there, because you've been very successful?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I can't take all the credit for the programs. I mean, we have just an incredible staff. We have an amazing board. And one of the things that we're really committed to is that having putting people that have the closest experience to the issue at the center of the issue and really empowering them to identify what they want and need is really critical. So we actually co-design our programs with the young people that we serve and with the families that we serve. And so we have an award-winning workforce development program called Works Wonders. It was actually co-designed and it's co-taught with young people who have lived experience with foster care. And we're doing career exploration. There's a classroom instructional piece, but then there's a hands-on experience, and we work with employers throughout the state of Rhode Island. I'll give a shout out to Ocean State Job Lot. You might remember Job Lot from your time in Rhode Island. They have been such an incredible employer partner to provide work experience opportunities for young people. And for so many of the 18, 19, 20-year-olds that we're working with that have experienced foster care, particularly if they've been placed in a group home, they didn't always get the normative opportunities that their same age peers did. You know, when you were at LaSalle, did you have a part-time job in Rhode Island?
I did. I worked at a place called Cranberry Bogs in Johnston. It went out of business quite a while ago, and then I went to Stop and Shop in Johnston. So,
And so, like, you're not going to be ready at 18, 19, 20 for more sophisticated opportunities if you
right.
hadn't had those early experiences where you learned how important it was to show up on time, to be appropriately
Yeah.
attired, you know, to not, you know, talk too much with other coworkers. You know, I mean, I remember being at Bliss Brothers Ice Cream in
Mm.
Attleboro, Mass. And it was like, you know, if you had time to lean, you had time to clean, right? You're learning good work habits in those experiences. And these kids didn't always get those early experiences. So what we're doing in Works Wonders is we're working with employers who are going to be a little forgiving. They're going to, you know, be really committed to allowing kids to fail forward and
Mm.
kind of creating a low barrier to entry to give those young people work experiences. And that model got recognition by Harvard Kennedy. We were the unanimous winner of their Innovations in American Government Award in 2018. And now we've got other partners, other nonprofits around the country who are actually working with us and paying us to implement that model. We've got one in Nashville, Tennessee, one in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we're talking about bringing one to Florida soon. So it's really exciting.
You know, I have to follow up with this question, put the exclamation point on the topic on this, because, you know, going back to the economy again, you know, there's a lot of jobs that are being cut, you know, whatever, you know, area of work we're speaking about, it's all over the country. You know, it's tech, it's retail,
Mhm.
everything's being cut back right now. Are you worried about that as a person that runs this organization, runs these programs, that some of these places, whether it's Job Lot or wherever the heck it is, are going to say, listen, Lisa, we just can't do it right now. You know, we're trying to cut costs here, and unfortunately, we can't do this.
So what's really great about the model that we've developed in Rhode Island is we've partnered with the state's Department of Labor and Training,
Okay.
and there are grants that are available. So when the employers take these young people, they do it at no risk to them. They're giving them the safe place to work and learn and grow. And we're cutting the check each week to pay the young person for their work
Oh, wow.
experience. And then, you know, employers will tell you, whatever the economic conditions are, that the cost of recruiting and
Right.
attracting and retaining quality employees is it can be a pretty expensive cost, right? So
Hmm.
in one way, what we're providing is a value add to them that they get an opportunity to try somebody out and see if they're a good fit. And at the end of the work experience, if that's not a good fit, then the young person gets, you know, a work experience to put on their resume and we help them move on to another opportunity. But if it is a good experience, then the employer can bring them on. So I think what we found is we've been doing this work for over a decade. Certainly the economic conditions have varied a little bit over the years, but this has kind of been a tried and true strategy to help successfully connect young people to the workforce. And you know, in Rhode Island right now, electric boat, there are a lot of companies that actually are growing and they're not able to fill those jobs. And so what we're trying to do is stand in that gap and say, what experiences and learning do these young people need so that they will be ready for the job that you are trying to fill right now?
Lisa Guillette, again, fosterforward.net. Definitely check out the website. She's the executive director again for Foster Forward. With the last few questions, Lisa, can you just give audience a story of a child that you may have, really helped succeed along with the rest of the group at Foster Forward? Maybe they came in, they were kind of on the rocks at first, and then they really stepped up their game along with the help from, a mentor or whoever it may be, and
Yeah.
really living successful lives now throughout their life. Excuse me.
I've been really fortunate to see thousands of young people who have come through Foster Forward and had those kind of experiences, but I'm going to make it really personal. So quite a few years ago, and it's funny you mentioned LaSalle because I live right around the corner from LaSalle, and it's kind of part of the story. I actually got my coffee at the bakery this morning, if you remember LaSalle Bakery
Right.
on Smith Street. But so I'm running the agency and we have a mentoring program called Real Connections. And one of our staff people comes to me and they say, listen, we've got this young woman. She's a junior at LaSalle Academy. She's actually in a program called Rise, for children of
Yeah.
incarcerated parents. And her mom's in jail and dad's not in the picture. And, she's been benefiting from this education, from Rise, and she's a junior in high school, and she wants to go to college, and no one in her family's ever gone to college, and she needs a mentor. So I signed up to be her mentor
Mm.
because she, would be able to come over after school, and we met at Newport Creamery. We got
Yep.
connected, and then we started kind of meeting together once a week. But soon enough, she became, she came to my house before school, and then she was coming to my house after
Mm.
school. And unfortunately, her mom reoffended and ended up back in jail, and she ended up homeless. And eventually, she ended up moving in with us.
Wow.
And over the years, she has become our daughter. And she ended up getting into LaSalle University in Philadelphia,
Hmm.
and she completed a 4-year degree at LaSalle. She really felt a debt, to the LaSallian family, and so she ended up being a LaSallian volunteer for a year in St. Louis, and then came back to Rhode Island and went back to her bedroom in our basement and spent a year studying and prepping, and she took the LSATs. And she ended up getting into St. Thomas University School of Law in Miami Gardens
Yeah,
in
I'm
Florida.
familiar with that. Yeah.
And like a week ago today, I was at her law school graduation in Florida.
Wow. That's quite a
So,
story. I actually almost went to that school.
really? Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
they're great. They were just named after Benjamin Crump, the School of Law.
Yeah.
Only the second law school in the country to be named after an African American man, and he's doing some great stuff on the Flint water,
Yeah.
the water thing in Flint, and
Right.
some of the social justice cases. But I was just so proud of her. She just keeps persevering and
Hmm.
moving forward, and it's a great feeling, and there are so many. I mean, we had another young woman here in Rhode Island who just finished at Rhode Island College.
Hmm.
She got a degree in social work, and she's going to do the 1-year master's program next year. Tuesday night, we were up at Patriot Place, and
Nice.
Mr. Kraft had a ceremony for a group of foster parents and
Oh, wow.
recognition. Thank you for having me. I don't know if you realized, even it took a while for us to get scheduled. It's National Foster Care Month. So this is a perfect time to have this conversation. And so the Kraft family and the Patriots were celebrating foster families, Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And we had a group of families up there. And two of the foster parents from Rhode Island were actually former foster youth who, as they
Oh,
became
wow.
adults, thought that it was really important to give back and to become foster parents. And so, earlier when you asked about the abuses in the system and stuff, I mean, one of the ways that you truly transform systems is when people who have
Yeah.
experienced them actually get back involved and, focus on making them better and making changes. And, every day I'm more hopeful for what's possible in improving systems when we put people who are most impacted by them at the center of them and let them lead the way. And certainly when I see former foster youth who are becoming foster parents and adoptive parents and being the person for the kids that they're caring for that maybe they didn't experience when they experienced the system. That gives me a lot of hope that we're headed in a better direction.
I want to talk more about some other stuff, but we'll save that for later. So we'll continue on with the interview because I want to ask you these last few questions. There's a lot of things going on with Foster Forward coming up. I just want you to tell the viewers and the people listening about some of the upcoming events that you're having and also how people can help support you guys in any way, shape, or form.
Sure. So we've got a lot of exciting things happening from, smaller events and activities like tomorrow, there's a dinosaur exhibit at Roger Williams
Yeah.
Park Zoo, and the dinosaurs are coming out to our community storefront. So we actually have a 4,000 square foot community storefront on the Providence Pawtucket line. It's basically like a retail space with clothing, furniture, and it's gently used in new stuff, everything from infant to young adult, shoes, you name it. And our staff maintain this storefront, and it's available to foster families and youth and young adults who've been in foster care, and it's completely free. So it's merchandise like a store, but there's no cash register, nobody pays for anything. And so tomorrow we have all of our families coming out for an ice cream social in recognition of Foster Care Month. And we have the dinosaurs from the dinosaur exhibit coming out um, to interact with the kids and the families. And we've got really big things going on. Like we're part of a 4 agency partnership with 3 other really leading nonprofits in Rhode Island. One Neighborhood Builder, who's a community development corporation, Crossroads Rhode Island, and Family Service of Rhode Island. And together we have acquired and will be developing 160 units of permanent and supportive housing for young people leaving foster care, for families who've been experiencing homelessness, for homeless veterans, and then just a mix of low and moderate income housing with an early childhood care center on the first floor. It's a $60 million project. I never thought running, a small nonprofit in foster care that we would be having such outsized impact on housing, but we're really excited. And, if all goes well with the capital stack and funding it, we will be handing people their keys to move into their apartments in August of 2025. So stay tuned on that. We also run an annual gala every year. This year it'll be September 8th. It's at the Waterfire Arts Center in Providence. I'm looking for sponsors. So if anyone's interested in becoming a sponsor for that event, or if you have any listeners in Rhode Island who want to buy a ticket and attend, keep visiting the website at fosterforward.net and stay tuned. We'll be publishing more information about that. But we're always looking for volunteers to help us man our community storefront, for mentors for young people in care, and for donations. All of this great work happens because people in the community step up and they make donations to support us. And those donations we use to fill the food pantry at our drop-in center for young people experiencing homelessness. We use it to help with barrier assistance for young people. Sometimes, having a bus ticket, or a bus pass, or having the right clothes to get to a job interview are the things that are make it or break it moments. Sometimes families, young people would be eligible if they're young parents, they would be eligible for childcare assistance if they had a full-time job. They can't get to the interview and they can't, get the paperwork in to get childcare until they've got a couple weeks of work under their belt. And when our donors step up and provide resources for us, we're able to directly put that in the hands of young people to solve the problems that otherwise would prevent them from moving forward and being successful.
It's really incredible what you're doing, Lisa. Now, did they break ground on that housing complex yet, or you're still in wait and see mode?
Yeah, so great question. So we've got a couple projects in the works. So one of them was 16 units with 3 of them set aside for young people leaving foster care. And I got to go to a groundbreaking ceremony with the mayor of East Providence, who's been a huge champion for developing more supportive housing, Mayor De Silva. And I got to put on a hard hat and hold a golden shovel and shovel some of the dirt for that groundbreaking. And so they've broken ground. This bigger project, the 160 units, we actually can't get shovels into the ground until we have the last dollar of what it would be to fund the project. So
So
we're
you're
hoping,
waiting, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
You're waiting on the state assembly then to pass those funds? Is
You got it. Yeah. So we've asked the General Assembly for some funding support. I was in House Finance Committee hearing this week and we'll be in the Senate next week pleading our case for some funding support. But if we get the appropriation from the General Assembly, we will have shovels in the ground in the last quarter of this year.
now how does that look as far as the assembly go and the House and the Senate? Is there a lot of support or is it still not, you're not sure what's going to happen there?
There's an incredible amount of support.
Okay.
The Boston Consulting Group just released a report about the housing crisis in Rhode Island, and I think there is universal agreement that we need more affordable units as quickly as possible. And that's the case that we're trying to make to the legislators. The East Providence delegation has really gotten behind this proposal and have been incredible champions. Whip Kazarian did an introduction for the resolution on the House side. Senator Lawson on the Senate side has really been leading the charge. And we've had a lot of really great conversations behind the scenes. The
Mm,
challenge with the General Assembly is, it's not over until it's over, and I think what we're trying to say is that we do believe there's still some ARPA money floating around in Rhode Island. We've heard the
mm,
feds talk about clawing back money that's unspent. And we think that this project is a one-time appropriation that will have a very immediate and lasting impact. And it would be a perfect use of these ARPA dollars. And when we were in House Finance this week, my colleague at Family Service of Rhode Island said that they have some homeless families that they're responsible for supporting right now. And, they've spent $2,800 this week on motel stays just for those families.
jeez.
And magnify that out in the course of a year, we are spending the money on emergency solutions, and we need to continue to address those emergencies in the meantime. But if we're not concurrently investing in the solutions for long-term housing for people, we're never going to get past the emergency, the encampments and the shelters that we're currently spending so much money on.
Fosterforward.net. Definitely check it out. Lisa Guillette. Lisa, let's end with this. We've talked about a lot of different things at the foster care system in Rhode Island, programs that you've really produced along with the people working with you and are really helping a lot of kids around the state of Rhode Island. What do you hope people learn from our interview today as far as that goes?
Oh, I think you've done an incredible job just helping to build awareness about, what is the foster care system, who's in the foster care system. I'm hoping that, people will want to step up and maybe consider becoming a foster parent. The research shows you think about it for at least a year before you step up to do it. So
Mm,
hopefully we planted some seeds today in our conversation. I'm hoping that, if somebody has a company or a business or they're interested in mentoring or providing a work experience to young people, that regardless of where you are in this country, you don't have to be in Rhode Island to work with Foster Forward. You can do a Google search locally and find great organizations in your community who are working with local children and youth in the foster care system. And you can get involved in, time, talent, treasure. Everything makes a big difference. These are our children,
mm,
and they've come into this system through no fault of their own. And when the state takes them, the Latin legal term is in locus parentis. Essentially the state is serving as parents. And, at the end of the day, I think all of us, we can talk on different shows or, at the dinner table. Oftentimes states are very inefficient in the way that they provide services, and they're pretty inefficient as parents. They're really a poor substitute for a family. And so, keeping foster care rare, brief, and non-reoccurring should be a focus that we all hold together. And I think when communities can come together to do that, that really great things can happen.
So obviously the website is fosterforward.net. People can go to that website, find a lot more information than the things that we just spoke about. As far as donations as that goes. I know you're having events, but people that aren't in Rhode Island maybe listen to this, say, hey, they look you guys up. They say it's a very good, legitimate organization, want to donate. They can donate on the website, or,
Yeah,
what can they
they can
do?
donate on the website. They can
Okay.
give us a call. We do accept donations at our community storefront for new and gently used clothing. We do like folks to coordinate with Kate Bronner. She's at 401-438-3900, extension 108. Just to see, sometimes we have needs for different sizes of clothes, or we might have too
Yeah.
much of something or not enough of something else. We're always looking for toiletry items for young people, helping foster families that are taking infants and young children, having supply of diapers and wipes and those kind of things. So, part of it is just to ease the path for families that are fostering and to create a community for them. So there are just so many ways to get involved. And I would say if anyone's interested, again, go to the website, give us a call. We'll find a way to get you connected.
Lisa Guillette, fosterforward.net. Definitely check her out. Lisa, it's been a pleasure. I hope we do this again down the road when there's even more things going on. And you're doing a wonderful job, and keep up the amazing work. People listening, I hope you follow Foster Forward. Is there anything on social media I should ask before we hang up?
Oh, yes. We're on Facebook as Foster Forward. We're on Twitter at Foster Forward, and our
Mhm.
Instagram handle is also Foster Forward. So you can join us on any of those channels. We do post regularly, we post some inspirational stories, and we would love to have folks follow us and learn more. And, we're going to stay true to our Rhode Island roots and also say go Friars.
You ain't kidding. That's 100% correct. And, follow Foster Forward. Keep getting that word out. Elisa, it's a pleasure having you on. Thanks so much. And we'll definitely do this again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.